The Scottish Government's to consider scrapping the controversial not proven verdict as part of a major review of the criminal trial process. It follows the publication today of a study into how trials are conducted here. As you probably know, unlike most of the world's legal systems, Scotland has 3 possible verdicts in criminal cases: guilty, not guilty, and not proven. That third verdict's been the subject of heated debate for generations. The legal implications of not proven are exactly the same as not guilty. The accused is acquitted and is innocent in the eyes of the law.
But now, a study has found scrapping it could make jurors more likely to find a suspect guilty in finely balanced cases. Well, here to discuss this further, we have QC's Gordon Jackson, who's the Dean of the Faculty of Advocates, and Thomas Ross, a former President of the Scottish Criminal Bar Association. They're joined by Sandy Brindley from Rape Crisis Scotland, which has often been critical of the not proven verdict. Firstly, and briefly if we could, can we just find out where you all stand on it? Gordon Jackson, you first.
My personal view is that we should get rid of not proven, but not for that reason. The idea that somehow people who are not being convicted would be convicted if we get rid of not proven does not make any sense to me. Jurors are told, if you're satisfied of guilt beyond reasonable doubt, convict. If you're not, acquit. That's what they do. They would still continue to do that. I find it difficult to believe that jurors who are at the moment satisfied of guilt beyond reasonable doubt don't convict because they've got not proven, and would convict if not proven wasn't there. I don't think there is any reason, despite what people think, that is likely or should happen.
Okay, we'll come back and get into the nuts and bolts. We've got plenty of time in just a minute, but Thomas Ross first, briefly if you could, just where do you stand on this?
Until I read the research report today, I was actually in favour of removing the not guilty verdict for cases which went to a jury. But having read the report, I do now have a concern that when in the examples which were used in the research project, where the not proven verdict was removed, it appeared that jurors who may have been inclined to acquit were more likely to, in fact, to convict. So there's some evidence that it could lead to a miscarriage of justice. But I also have a different concern, which was expressed by some of the jurors who took part in the project, namely that when we have 2 acquittal verdicts, that the not proven verdict can be seen as something of a tainted verdict, and there's no doubt from the research that some of the jurors had some doubts as to what the effect of it actually was.
Yeah, it's been controversial and unpopular almost since its inception, hasn't it? Sir Walter Scott famously described it as the bastard verdict. But Sandy Brindley, it's quite rare actually in a criminal case to have a not proven verdict, except in cases of rape and attempted rape, where I think almost a quarter of all acquittals are not proven. Where do you stand on this?
Well, what we know is that the conviction rate for rape and attempted rape is lower than for any other crime type in Scotland, and not proven is used disproportionately in rape cases. And I share Tommy's concern for miscarriage of justice, but I think there is definitely miscarriage of justice happening, and it's for rape survivors in Scotland who have so little chance of getting justice. Our worry is about the combination of potentially jury attitudes around rape combined with a not proven verdict leading potentially to guilty men walking free and rape survivors being denied justice. I think this research does suggest that there could be an issue, or there definitely is an issue with jury members' understanding of what not proven means. I think jury members in rape trials hide behind it. I think it needs to go.
I mean, it's famously unpopular, Thomas Ross, isn't it? Because it seemed to not really give satisfaction to anybody. The accused walks out with a cloud hanging over them, and the petitioner or the person at the centre of the case doesn't see a conviction or a not guilty verdict.
No, it's fantastically popular with people who are acquitted in a not proven verdict.
Yeah, I bet it is.
You know,
but them alone.
And no, I don't think so. I don't think lawyers who understand that the question for the jury is really whether the charge is proven or not proven. That's really a sort of binary issue, and it seems to make perfect sense to me that the jury would choose to express a view of not proven. The worry is the people who are not, we're in court every day, people who are not in court every day. For example, in the research project, I noticed that one of the jurors expressed the view that a not proven verdict would still be on the person's record, and therefore there would be consequences for the person, which isn't true. But it's a bit concerning that people who sit on a jury and are given instructions by a retired High Court judge still think that.
There's been a lot of coverage of this story today, and one thing that hadn't really occurred to me before is, somebody, a victim of crime, could they potentially see the not proven verdict as given kind of an advantage to the accused? They've got kind of two options, in the verdict, and the victim only has one that would go in their favour.
I'm sure that's right, and that's a good reason to get rid of it, because it causes that sort of confusion. Where I don't agree with Sarah is the simple idea that people who are convinced of guilt beyond reasonable doubt do not convict because they have the option of not proven. That, to me, does not make sense.
So why would a jury reach a not proven verdict? Under what circumstances would a jury come to that conclusion? If it's not, we think you did it, but we can't pin it on you.
Well, it might be that.
Yeah, it might be, but why else would it be then?
It might well be. We think you might have done it, you probably did it.
So why is not guilty not good enough?
Because not guilty, when we have a presumption of innocence, if the jury are not satisfied of guilt, the person should be acquitted, full stop. I'm sure there are lots of occasions people are acquitted where the jury think, on balance, they probably did it. But that's not a high enough standard.
Thomas Ross, you're out of the three here, the most in favour of this verdict. What, can you give me another example as to why a jury might reach this verdict?
Well, Sandy's a very powerful advocate for people who are victims of sexual crime, and I understand their position. But commonly in these cases, the trial really comes down to one person's word against another person's word. And often there will be medical evidence, which is enough to get the case to the jury, but probably doesn't point the jury categorically in one direction rather than the other. So in those cases, the obvious view for the jury to take is, well, she seemed perfectly believable, he seems perfectly believable, there's nothing to point one way or the other, so the proper verdict is not proven.
I don't think this is the case in my experience. People think in rape trials it's one person's word against another. If that was the case, it wouldn't get to court, because we have a corroboration requirement that stops cases getting to court unless there's very specific supporting evidence. And we have seen a number of not proven verdicts in cases where I think there's been significant supporting evidence. There's been evidence of significant life-changing physical injury, for example. We had a case where the woman spoke out last week where the incident was recorded. The whole incident was recorded. The police officer said to her, it was the most horrific thing I've ever heard. It was a not proven verdict. So I just do not buy this argument that it's one person's word against another, therefore the jury will go for not proven. I think part of the reason why juries go for not proven is because they simply do not want to convict in rape cases, and I think that is about attitudes. It's attitudes within society
but how
that jury members bring to bear in their decision
making. How would the removal of not proven
I don't
fix that?
I don't think it's a silver bullet in any way. I think there's much deeper issues we need to discuss, I think, about should juries be used in rape trials at all, which is a bigger question. But I do think with a not proven verdict, I think there is the potential that in a small number of cases that jury members, because of their attitudes, they don't want to convict in rape cases, they go for not proven, and they think somehow they're giving something to the rape survivor or to the rape complainer, and the reality is they're not.
All right.
Can I add something to that? Is it too late?
Very, very briefly, if you could.
I think there are complex reasons why rape convictions are lower than other cases. That's a big subject. Yeah. I don't think it's got to do with not proven, and I cannot really believe that there are people who say we're satisfied of that person's guilt, but we're just going to jump onto not proven.
Okay. Well, there will be a wholesale look at this at government level. The latest wholesale look at government level, but that's all the time we've got for this look at our level. Thank you very much indeed. Sandy Brindley, Gordon Jackson, Thomas Ross. Thank you.
At least two people have